And we're live. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Leslie. How are you?
I'm great. And I know that we already have people in the comments. Oh,
Wow.
hello, Kevin Turner and Gary. And Christina Massa's here, which is perfect because I wanted to share some quotes from the comments in the event.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
what I'm going to bring, and the first one is Christina, which
Oh,
here, I'll read it. Your last talk about generations in the workplace was so insightful, engaging, and fun. And I just want to say thank you so much for writing that, because sometimes you want to know that what we're talking about resonates with people. So thank you,
absolutely.
Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
And this one, I feel like talks to what Melissa always says about the length of our show. And I wanted to share this one from my new connection, Barbara. 30 minutes is the magic time frame.
I agree. I agree. I think for, a bigger speaking panel, like if there were four of us hosting, I understand a longer time frame to give everybody time to speak, but I think 30 minutes is perfect. Leave people wanting more.
Oh, I love that. That's a great quote. Leave people wanting more. And then this one is about our current topic today from our very good friend Charity Hughes. She said, tough conversations are where the good stuff's at.
Yes.
So true. I guess it leans into that issue of, what's uncomfortable is the stuff we have to really go and do, because when you get through it, it feels so good.
It does. It really is. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk more in a few minutes, but sometimes we build these things up in our heads to be so much worse than they really are. And then when it's done, you do feel really happy that you had that conversation.
Yeah. I've tried to, when I used to get really nervous before speaking or even leading a meeting, someone told me, being nervous or being excited is really like the same feeling. And if you keep that in your mind, just know when you feel that weird, nervous feeling, remind yourself, oh, wait, something great is about to happen.
Oh,
And
I
it's
love
kind of
that.
the same idea.
I love
It
that.
really works. And then we have from Krithika, she added to it, but I loved her use of the word finesse.
Yeah.
Difficult conversations need finesse.
Yeah.
Just a little extra thought. So, welcome to everyone. And let's look at the comments to see who's here, and then we'll do our more formal welcome. So, we said, oh, everyone's chatting with each other already, which I love. Jeannie is here. It's nice and early for her. It's 7 a.m. her time. Thank you for being here. Oh, and Evan's
Hi,
here.
Ellen. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you for making us smile, Evan. And we said hello to Gary. Thank you. 30 minutes is perfect. And I think it's even the ask of us asking you, like, hey, in the middle of your morning or the afternoon or whatever time it is for you, we're asking you to show up. And 30 minutes is a good amount of time to take a break. Oh, hello, Catherine. Oh, my new friend, Lauren, thank you for being here. I call it, I met her last night. I met her, I saw her on Instagram, and then I connected with her here on LinkedIn this morning. So, hello, Lauren, thank you for showing up. We'll do a few more, I see, and then we'll get started.
Great.
Ari, and happy birthday
Yes.
yesterday. I think I
Happy
got the days
birthday,
right.
Ari. That's right.
And another early bird, because I think it's 7 a.m. where she is, Melissa Ann Houston. Thank you for being here. Oh my God, there's so many people I haven't seen in a while. Calvin is here. Thank you. So
Well,
we're
you're
going to get to all of you.
Leslie.
Jane, yay. Thank you for being here. And then, of course, we always get someone who's a LinkedIn user. Good morning from Portland. So happy to be here. Oh, I
Okay,
don't know. We're going to find it.
you're gonna have to put in the chat who you are because I can see the wheels in Leslie's head are turning.
And Lynn, oh, thank you so much for being here. So we want to welcome you all for being here. Thank you for joining us, whether you're here live, which we really appreciate, or if you're watching the replay. This is Let's Talk About It, Careers, Business, and LinkedIn, episode 18. And this is Best Tips, How to Have Difficult Conversations. And we're hoping to help everyone manage the cringe. So let's start with introducing ourselves. And Melissa, if you would take over.
I just love that, managing the cringe. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Cohen. I am here, as is Leslie, in New York City. So you might hear some fire engines going by. You might hear some hammering and banging from the gut renovation going on below me. This is life in New York, but I am a personal branding and LinkedIn strategist. I help people to find their voice, build their brands, and build their business here on my very favorite platform, LinkedIn. And I am super excited to have this conversation with Leslie, and I really appreciate everyone coming and spending half an hour with us today.
Hey, thank you. And I'm Leslie Nydick. I also am in New York City. And luckily today, Con Ed is giving me a morning off because they've been working through the weekend right outside my window. And it is loud, but not today. So I'm enjoying the peace. So I help people get unstuck from conflict, and I focus on communication strategies and negotiation. So this kind of goes hand in hand with today's conversation about difficult conversations. I want to mention a future event that's being sponsored by Learn It. And if you don't know them, get to know them. We're going to be talking about feedback and how to turn it into a competitive advantage. Fantastic two other people that are going to be with me on the panel, and it's April 24th. And if you are interested, no pressure, but put a blue heart emoji in the comments, and I'll make sure to reply with the links so you can learn more about the event. So let's see who's here. Oh, wait, I have to interrupt for a special announcement.
I'm so scared.
And then we'll see who's in. I know Melissa doesn't know I was going to do this.
Oh, no.
So first, this deserves some confetti. Yay. What I just want to share is that something that I think we already knew, but I'm glad that others are recognizing it. Favicon has included Melissa on their top 100 most influential voices in personal branding and audience growing on LinkedIn worldwide. Congratulations, because
Thank
it's just another great recognition, and I think it deserves
Thank
one
you.
more confetti bomb.
Thank you so much, Leslie. You're the best. You're hired. You're hired for my PR. Thank you.
I'll start a side business of PR. That sounds like a good
I love
idea.
it. Conflict-free PR.
So we're going to have a question for the audience, but I thought that I'd check to see who's shown up now because there's a lot more people are here. Oh, I had Christina before. Oh, I love New York. She grew up in Queens. I didn't know that. And the comments are flying by. So each one I try to click on, I'm clicking on the wrong one. So I love that. Karen Cooper I think today she's across the river.
Staten
So
Island,
she's
I think.
nearby.
Yes.
And then a couple more. Oh, hello, Rebecca Jones. So glad you're here. Ali Schneider, welcome. Congratulations, Melissa. Yay. Oh, and I missed this before. Wendy's here.
Oh, hi,
Yay.
Wendy. Thank you.
And I can't wait to see you later in the spring in New York. Meg King. Oh, thank you for the blue. And I see a few blue hearts. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to share that link with you later. Okay. So let's get to a question for the audience. So as per a survey by Bravely, 70%, that's with a zero, 70% of employees are avoiding difficult conversations at work. That's a huge number. So the question that I want to ask all of you, or we want to ask all of you, is what topics are most difficult to talk about with a manager or even a colleague? We want to know. So please share it in the comments. And I thought I'd ask Melissa, like, what different kind of topics are on like the most difficult list?
I mean, I think for me, the one that immediately comes to mind is just, performance related, right? You're not doing the job the way your manager is expecting. You're not meeting an expectation in some fashion. I think that's always one of the most difficult conversations. And, I think also maybe not meeting a deadline, right? You have an assignment and you know that you're not going to be able to deliver it on time, telling your manager that you need an extension on something. So one is kind of manager down and one is kind of manager up.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a great point. The manager up and manager down. And performance was on my top of my list as well. And something we're going to talk about later is the money issue,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's for employer or as a solopreneur or someone who owns a business
Yes.
asking clients for money. It just seems to be like once it's in your head, it's like, oh, do I have to do
Yes.
that today? Can I wait till next week? So let's see what people are answering in the comments. One comment is, good seeing you, Melissa.
Hi.
I now live on the extension in Long Island. My kids live in the Upper West Side, so I always made the trip. I love that. You're here. Hello, Joseph. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And late, we love. You can arrive at any time. And I'm just skipping around. It's like so many are coming at the same time that it's hard to click on them.
I see yes, that's exactly the one I was going to say. I think that's a really interesting point.
Well, I would think a tough one would be speaking to a male supervisor about female health issues that affect progress or require time away from medical therapy. That's Thank you for mentioning that, Lynn. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And also vice versa. Even just any health issues. Sometimes you wanted to say, like, I'm not feeling well today, but it needed more the explanation.
Yeah.
But it's how much detail do you give? When is it too much information? When is it too little information because they don't understand the impact on your life? It's that thing of, I was talking about it in a post the other day. Our whole self comes to the office, but so many times there's a part of ourselves that we're masking or hiding, and it's really like a daily or an hourly chore to figure out how much do you want to reveal or not reveal, and it really is so dependent on the type of culture that you're working in.
Yeah, I'm not a human resources expert, but we do have at least one, maybe more in the comments here. So I'm really curious, for me, when it comes to something really personal and specific about health issues, in my mind, it would always be more of a conversation with human resources, right? And let them manage that communication with your direct boss. So I'm curious, like I know Gary's here. I'm just curious what the HR experts think about that. That was sort of always the way it operated in my mind, right? And obviously, if you have a closer, more personal relationship with your manager, maybe you do have a direct conversation. But otherwise, I always would have sort of left that to HR. So I'm curious about that myself.
That's a good point. And I can think of situations where that would have been a great resource for me because of the HR structure that existed. And then there were times when that wouldn't have been a great resource just because I worked at a startup,
Yeah.
and the HR was more like scrambling to get, the hires in versus managing that day to day. So they wouldn't have been a great resource in those moments until we were more established. So
Yeah.
yes, I'd love to hear what people are saying. Oh, hello, Sia. We're
Yeah.
so glad you're here. And there's a lot of saying hello to each other back and forth in the comments. And I see Gary's here. That's a really powerful point. That's probably a prior comment from Christina. Oh, and Maria Martin is here. Yay, we're so glad you're here. Oh, and everyone's still saying hello to each other. So that gives us a chance to let's get to the meat of the topic so that, and of course, there it is. So we're going to start with this question from Melissa. What are your tips to have a conversation with your manager or anyone when we need to deliver the bad news? And you mentioned some examples before, whether it's a delay in project completion, problems with a process, staff are leaving. What's your tip for that?
So for me, the biggest tip is deliver that message as soon as you can. Right. And I know that that goes against every instinct that we have, which is to wait and maybe it will get better and maybe we don't have to have the conversation. That almost never happens. If somebody is not performing to expectations, they're not going to miraculously turn that around without feedback and guidance. If you are delayed on a deliverable, it's highly unlikely that you're suddenly just going to catch up. And listen, if you do, fantastic, but have that conversation as early as you can. So if I'm a manager and I have a project that my team has to deliver to me on a Wednesday, if they come to me at Tuesday at 5 p.m. and tell me there's a problem, I'm not going to be so happy and I'm not going to be as empathetic and understanding as if they came to me a week before and said, listen, here are the problems I'm facing, right? Because first of all, I might be able to influence the situation, right? Depending on what's holding them up. If they are being held up because they're not getting information that they need from someone, I might be able to influence that, right? I might be able to reach out and say, hey, my team needs this. How can I help? How can we get that information to them? And never forget that if you have a deliverable to your boss, that might be influencing a deliverable that they have.
Exactly.
So by holding up your boss's project, you might be really causing them to be delayed on something that they have to deliver to senior leadership. And so the earlier you can have that conversation, the more proactive your manager can be with finding a solution, and also the more understanding they're going to be. Nobody wants to be surprised at the last minute.
No, and you pointed out how it can be such a negative ripple effect, that
Yes.
chances are this project is not happening in a vacuum, that there's other things that are being impacted, and they're taking that opportunity away for you to be able to resolve or inform the other people in advance versus them being like, oh wait, I'm walking in a meeting and now you're telling me it's going to be delayed. I could have delayed the meeting. So it's a whole ripple effect.
And
That's really,
I do want to say one thing, like as a manager, if you do have a project out to your team, also check in periodically, right? So that you're not getting that surprise. Shame on me if I have a big project that I've assigned to my team and I don't have periodic check-ins to make sure everybody's on schedule. But still, these things happen. and deliver the news as soon as you can.
And the check-in going both ways then makes it even clearer to the person who has some bad news, like, hey, you know what? They want to hear this because they're always checking in and they want to hear the good and the bad. So maybe it makes everyone more comfortable to
Yeah.
talk about. So that's one thing that I started the post for this event where I said, let's talk. And most people were like, those are the two words I never want to hear because that causes the cringe. So that's my one tip. Think about what words you're using to invite the conversation. Let's talk. Try to avoid that one.
Yeah.
Second, think about how what you're saying sounds. Like, for instance, if you walk up to someone and say, I have a problem because we're not going to meet the deadline, then it's like, oh. But it sounds like you're dumping the issue in that person's lap because you are. You haven't offered anything. So don't deliver just the problem. Offer a solution, maybe not an exact solution, like, hey, this project is delayed. I know two people I can go and talk to see if we can smooth out these rough spots. But start with that. You know, I want to share my idea of how to address the challenge on this project. I want to hear what's you're going to talk about rather than just saying, I have a problem, because that does sound like it's dumping it in that person's lap and now it's their problem.
Exactly.
So that's my tip.
Don't just tell them the problem, offer some path to a solution.
Yes. Now, I definitely want to go to the comments because there are a lot and they're still coming through. So, Melissa, if you saw any that I should pull out, but I'm going to pick this one out. Gary said, bad news does not get better with time. It doesn't. And it's my motto also with conflict. When people are like, oh yeah, I was avoiding it, it might go away. I'm like, no, it won't, and it will get worse. Jeannie said, you have to manage up, and quite possibly your manager may need to manage up. Do not forget that. You're not working in a vacuum. Christina added, there's no time to react. Their lack of delivery now becomes the manager's responsibility. Not good. Agreed. Here's a question. Thank you, Sia. How do you suggest to approach someone who is high anxiety in general, so any constructive feedback or urgent deliverable isn't compounding their stress? I think, you know, Melissa's brought up timing is so important. Timing's important. Also, how you're physically standing with someone. With someone like that, like a walking conversation might be, you know, an easier one because you're not looking at each other and maybe you're walking to the nearby coffee shop. It really depends on the personality, but I definitely think it's important that you ask the question, Sia, so that we think about, like, it's not just our words, it's when we approach the person. It's how we're standing. You know, if you're at a big desk and they're sitting in front of your desk, that might not be the best location for that kind of conversation. Any other thoughts, Melissa?
I mean, I think it's a great question. And I would say this regardless of who you're speaking with, but especially somebody who might be prone to, you know, being anxious or high stress. Just have empathy, right? Always lead the conversation with empathy, and just the fact that you're aware that this person has, you know, wiring that tends to make them more stressed and more anxious, I think already shows empathy, right? You've already kind of made yourself aware of that. And so lead the conversation with empathy and, you know, don't make it a finger pointing conversation, make it a how can we solve this problem conversation.
It's a perfect spot to end on that question. I love that. That's a quotable. So I see the time flying by, so I definitely want to get to the second question. So Melissa, and this one I think stumps a lot of us. What are your best tips for asking one of the most difficult questions, which is how to ask for a raise if you're employed or more money from a client if leading a business or as a solopreneur? Do you have any tips, Melissa?
Yeah, this is really a fun one, and I can remember situations in my corporate life when I tried to advocate for more money for people on my team, and the response would drive me crazy. The response would be, "Well, have them go get an offer somewhere, and we'll try to counter it." Not kidding. Terrible. So, if you're going to ask for a raise, it has to come from facts, right? So I would say two things.
Yes.
One, have a lot of backup as to what value you've added to the organization, right? If it can be dollars and cents, even better. But even if you're not in a role that has, fiscal KPIs, show the value you've added to the organization, whatever that might look like. And also do your market research, right?
Yes.
Know what people in your similar role in your geographic area, because that's an important one, right? If you live in, a large city like New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco, chances are the salaries are going to be higher than in other places of the
Sure.
country because the cost of living is higher. So definitely have those facts as to what do your peers in similar roles in similar geographic locations, what are they earning?
Yes. Oh, those are so good, and it really coincides with what I was going to share. Um, the one thing I would also say is don't wait until it's past the point of no return.
Yes.
Like they would, your management was asking, like, "Hey, let them go get an offer, and we can counter offer it." Okay, when we're already at that point, even their mindset is out the door. You don't want someone to go seek what's going on somewhere else. They're saying they want to stay where they are.
Wow.
So if you're the one wanting to ask for the money and initiate the conversation, don't wait until you're at that point of like if they don't give it to you that minute, you're leaving. So, and then whether you're employed or working with clients, it needs to be a habit to talk about our wins. And that's where many of us struggle because we think we're bragging. And it's just, we have to just make it part of the conversation, that ongoing thing where, hey, you resolved a challenge and you just, whether you talk about it in a meeting to share it as a best practice, how you improved a process, all of that needs to be talked about all the time. Because then when you want the raise with your employer or to ask for more money from your client, your conversation can start with like, hey, I'm excited about how much we've accomplished during the last 6 months, 9 months, whatever the time frame is. So this is a good time to talk about when I can expect a raise, or that I have to start thinking about when I'm increasing my fees. And it makes it an easier conversation. It's not just a demand, it becomes a conversation where they now have to talk about how much they appreciated that or not, what else they're looking for.
I love that. I'm going to tell a very quick story because I know we're almost out of time, but as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, I think it's also really important to know when you have to walk away, when you have to walk
Yes.
away from a client, right? And that's really hard to do, especially when we're starting out, right? Because we think that any revenue is better than no revenue. But at a certain point, it really becomes a drain on your mental and physical well being and your ability to take on higher paying clients, right? Because you're spending so much time on a client who's not paying you your worth. And that happened to me early on in my consulting years. I accepted a really low ball consulting offer because I said to myself, well, they're going to see how much value I bring to the table and they are going to then adjust. And that never happened, right? Even though I was delivering, even though I was doing all the things that I was being asked to do, and then some, they were just like, great, but here's what we're paying you. And so I ultimately had to walk away from that client, but I should have done it much sooner. And so always know when it's time to walk away.
Perfect
Yeah.
way to end that, because we are at the end.
Oh my
30
God.
minutes goes very fast. We obviously can keep on talking about this, so
Okay.
there may be a part 2
I love it.
coming up soon.
Love it.
I love that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. You know, we're going to get in the comments. I'm going to share that panel that I'm going to be on. We do want to let you know we will be back April 25th. So we hope you'll join us, whether it's live or the replay. And before we sign off, Melissa, anything to close?
I just want to say thank you to everyone, not only for spending this time with us, but for all the amazing comments. They're still coming in and they're absolutely wonderful. I see one that I love from Christina: the communication door swings both ways. Amen. And Leslie and I always go back in and answer questions, answer comments. We might be a little delayed today because I know she and I are actually doing something in person later today, but we will get there. So keep the comments coming. And this is Leslie's tip that I love, so I'm going to steal it and tell you all today. Check out the networking tab on the event post. And if you're not connected with one another, please do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.